Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare. Okay, I guess we can start since we chanted Radha Madhava. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, reading from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, verse number 1. The last word is gata. Somebody from... It's okay. Unless you want to fix your daughter's mistake, probably. No problem. Shri Bhagavano Vacha Parambhuya Pravakshyami Parambhuya Pravakshyami Jnanam Jnanam Uttamam Jnanam Jnanam Uttamam Yagyatva Munaya Sarve Yagyatva Munaya Sarve Param Siddhim Ito Gataha Param Siddhim Ito Gataha Shri Bhagavano Vacha Parambhuya Pravakshyami Jnananam Jnanam Uttamam Yagyatva Munaya Sarve Param Siddhim Ito Gataha. Since we are doing not so long, so please one Prabhu chant the verse and one Mataji. So who's going to be that exalted Prabhu? You want to try? Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Parambhuya Pravakshyami Jnananam Jnanam Uttamam Yagyatva Munaya Sarve Param Siddhim Ito Gataha. Mataji. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Parambhuya Pravakshyami Jnananam Jnanam Uttamam Yagyatva Munaya Sarve Param Siddhim Ito Gataha. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Param, transcendental, Bhuya, again, Pravakshyami, I shall speak, Jnananam, of all knowledge, Jnanam, knowledge, Uttamam, the Supreme, Yat, which, like, not which, but which as WH questions. Gyatva, knowing. Munaya, the sages. Sarve, all. Param, transcendental. Siddhim, perfection. Ita, from this word. Gata, attained. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Abhaya Charana Ravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami. Shri Prabhupada Ki. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Again I shall declare to you this supreme wisdom, the best of all knowledge, knowing which all the sages have attained the supreme perfection. Purport. From the 7th chapter to the end of the 12th chapter, Sri Krishna in detail reveals the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now the Lord himself is further enlightening Arjuna. If one understands this chapter through the process of philosophical speculation, he will come to an understanding of devotional service. In the 13th chapter, it was clearly explained that by humbly developing knowledge, one may possibly be freed from material entanglement. It has also been explained that it is due to association with the modes of nature that the living entity is entangled in this material world. Now in this chapter, the Supreme Personality explains what those modes of nature are, how they act, how they bind, and how they give liberation. The knowledge explained in this chapter is proclaimed by the Supreme Lord to be superior to the knowledge given so far in other chapters. By understanding this knowledge, various great sages attained perfection and transferred to the spiritual world. The Lord now explains the same knowledge in a better way. This knowledge is far, far superior to all other processes of knowledge thus far explained, and knowing this many attained perfection. Thus it is expected that one who understands this 14th chapter will attain perfection. Om Jnanatirmandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manubhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutali Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutri Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaur Bham Pracharya Nirvishishya Nivada Vishkata Vishtara Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutri Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Bhakti Vedanta Samaktam Rama Dev Sima Pradhanam Rudam Prasthaya. Okay, Hare Krishna. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for your presence. If my language or English or dialect or speed is for some reason not understood, so please feel free to interrupt. So again, this 14th chapter was for some reason started by the 3rd verse, and we skipped the introduction, so I'll try to speak a little bit about it. But before doing that, we need to relate it to the 13th chapter a little bit. So the 13th chapter, entitled Nature, the Enjoyer and Consciousness, is kind of philosophical for some devotees. And this is one of the main points I want to talk about, that sometimes such material, devotional material, let's say, doesn't sound so devotional to us. It sounds more philosophical. And the devotees think like, yes, nice, but why? You know, just chant Hare Krishna and be happy. Yeah? Prabhupada said, chant and be happy. So, and he made it simple, the process of Bhakti Yoga devotional service. Just follow regulative principles, chant the 16 rounds, you'll feel the purification, associate with the devotees. And some devotees think that actually he did not stress upon the philosophical understanding of our philosophy. However, whoever hears Prabhupada's lectures, it is quite obvious how his preaching or his knowledge is very much based on Siddhanta, on conclusions. It's not based on, the philosophy is not being watered down in case for the sake of, bringing people or attracting people to the cult of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because sometimes during preaching, we see ourselves going actually down to this level, that, yes, chant Hare Krishna, we sing mantras, we dance, we take prasad, we have fun, just come to us and join us. But it's very important to know that we actually have much more. We actually have the highest knowledge. And to claim actually that we have the highest knowledge means that you understand some of that knowledge. That means that you can present actually this knowledge properly in a way that is comprehensible for the other. And in a way that is actually still genuine. You're not changing anything. You're not putting your own opinion. And through this purity and through this sincerity of trying to transmit the message as it is, like Prabhupada, with so much confidence, he called the Bhagavad Gita as it is. Why? Because he was not writing his own words. He was just giving us the message as it is from the spiritual world. This is exactly what Krishna wants to tell you, and here I just presenting it to you. So the understanding of Siddhanta is very much important in a way for us to present the philosophy properly. And even if you're not interested in presenting the philosophy, meaning if you're not interested in preaching, if you're not interested in books distribution and having much contact with the non-devotees, so-called non-devotees, then it's still important for our own self. Because proper faith and proper understanding is the only thing, it's actually the pillar that will hold us in our spiritual life. So we all know that the material world is actually full of difficulties. Whoever, has, whoever is beyond the age of puberty, let's say, has realized this. That's actually, it's not easy just to survive or to be happy in this world. And these difficulties will come to us regardless if we are devotees or non-devotees, regardless if you're a pious man, non-pious man, a devotee, a demon, a Hare Krishna, non-Hare Krishna, whatever it is, it will come. The only thing, because this is the nature of this material world. And sometimes we think, now I have taken to Krishna consciousness philosophy, then everything will be all right. But with time, we actually understood, okay, it's actually, I'm still kind of struggling to, just to have a normal life, or what's the meaning of normal life. So the only thing that actually needs to change is our perception and our reaction to the life situations, because difficulties will happen anyway. And in a spiritual life, when we have taken a spiritual path, a spiritual process, and those difficulties come, then we need to make sure that actually we are taking shelter of God, we are taking shelter of Krishna, we are taking shelter of our understanding and our deep and again philosophical understanding of the philosophy of the knowledge. So at some point, one day or the other, the crisis will come actually. And I'm not talking now about a crisis of famine or a third world war or economical crash down or whatever. It's just an individual difficulties that we will go through. Regardless if that difficulty is small, like, I don't know, you go half an hour late to prasad room and there's no prasad. And we see some may react different from the others. Or we actually go through some real challenges in life. Like family situation may suddenly change. Land situation, like all those people who are being forced to just leave their homes, leave their lands, and start all over again new from somewhere new. Or economical problems, somebody loses something, somebody makes an accident, or loses his, his job, his business, and so on. So it is inevitable, let's be honest. It cannot be avoided, these difficulties. And when our faith in the spiritual practice is firm and fixed, then those difficulties will not actually shake us. We will stay actually fixed in our position, because we know already that at the end of the day the difficulties will come, and when they do come, we do not seek shelter in other methods. We are actually not afraid. In the 11th count of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that actually fear is caused by thinking that there is something second except than God, except than Krishna. So meaning that everything is in this world is actually Krishna himself, is actually being controlled either directly or indirectly by Krishna. So when we forget this basic principle that actually every blade of grass is moving by the supreme will, by the supreme desire, when we forget this very basic principle, then actually fear arises, bhaya. So this was just a small introduction. I have this from Jagadish Prabhu, our dear Jagadish Prabhu. For those of you who know this book, it's a summary study by Bhurijana Prabhu on the Bhagavad Gita. It's called Surrender Unto Me. Again, it's for Jagadish Prabhu, so please don't ask me to take it for a minute. So the 13th chapter is called Nature, the Enjoyer and Consciousness. And in Sanskrit, the term for it is Kshetragya Yoga, or another naming for it, let me see if I can remember it, Prakriti Purusha, or Purusha Prakriti Viveka Yoga. So Prakriti means material nature, Purusha means the living entity, Viveka Yoga means to know the difference. So this title of this chapter is actually very much saying about what is this chapter. We need to know what is the difference between material nature and between Purusha, Viveka, to differentiate. Yeah. It's okay, I'm not so fast. So Arjuna is starting this chapter by asking Krishna. He's asking him the 6 questions. What is Prakriti? What is Purusha? What is Kshetra? What is Kshetragya? What is knowledge? And what is the object of knowledge? So like we said, Prakriti, nature, material nature, Purusha, the living entity, Kshetra, which is the field of activities, Kshetragya, the knower of the field of activities, and knowledge and the object of knowledge. And Krishna is starting by answering the first 2 points about Kshetra and Kshetragya. He's saying Kshetra is the field of activities, actually this body, and Kshetragya is the knower of this body, which is the soul within. He's saying, however, there is another knower of this body, but he's not he does not only in knowledge of this body, but of all the bodies, and is called Jiva, Paramatma, the super soul. So there is Kshetra and there is Kshetragya, the knower of the body, but the knower of the body, there is Jiva and there is the Paramatma. And then he talks about the knowledge, actually. He gives a definition of knowledge. And he says that knowledge is to know these two and to know the relationship between them. And gives a definition of knowledge. He says humility, pridelessness, what else? Truthfulness, approaching a spiritual master, cleanliness, and so on. Gives 4 verses, actually, about the definition of what is knowledge. And the process or the path of knowledge, how to attain this knowledge. And saying the object of knowledge, the fourth aspect of the 6 questions is Kshetragya, is actually the super soul, ultimately, what we want to get to know. And what else? Gya, Kshetragya, and then Purusha and Prakriti. And there is at some point in this chapter, there is actually the connecting point between the 13th chapter and the 14th chapter. So in verse 22 of the 13th chapter, which is, maybe not read the Sanskrit. I don't know if somebody here understands Sanskrit. Do you? No? You can read Devanagari? Okay, that's something. So in the 22nd chapter, Krishna is saying the living entity in material nature. Okay, you're good, Bjorn. Yeah? The living entity in material nature follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of of nature. This is due to his association with the material nature. Thus, he meets with good and evil amongst various species. So, again, sorry if this is not so interesting for you, because for a lot it's not interesting. This mechanism of actually how the material world is how the material world is created and being maintained. So we have, like we said, it's only consisting of two things, the material nature and the living entity. And Krishna is saying also in this same chapter that all the varieties of life are actually being developed by this material nature. And the suffering and enjoyment is by the living entity. So all the causes and effects are due to the material nature and its interaction. And the suffering and enjoyment is just due to the living entity. So actually the suffering and enjoyment of this world is only happening here within our mind. It's nothing else. Otherwise it's just a TV screen. And it's good that I just say this TV screen, because this is actually a connection also to the 14th chapter. So the 14th chapter which is called the three modes of material nature. Yes, he's talking about the three gunas, the mode of goodness, sattva gun, the mode of passion, raja gun, and the mode of ignorance, tama gun. And to understand this material world properly, actually, this material energy, the material nature, prakriti, and the purusha are kind of asleep in an unmanifested state in the Mahavishnu. And then the three modes of material nature, or this material nature, the material nature, when the Lord glances at it, when he looks at it, then the three modes of material nature develop, which we, like I said, sattva gun, raja gun, and tama gun. And how they are actually being put into action is actually through time. And this is a second topic, difficult topic. I have zero realizations there, so I'm not going to look into detail. But technically the Krishna or Mahavishnu is glancing at this material nature, and then the three modes, by the help of time or by the agent of time, which is the, let's say, germinating factor, is these three gunas are being created. And these three gunas, or the whole material world, is consisted of three gunas. All living entities are actually being controlled by these three gunas. And Krishna is saying here that so far, he says, again, I shall declare to you this knowledge. So that means that he mentioned this already in the 13th chapter. And he's saying that until now, this is the best of all knowledge. Everything that I mentioned to you before was nice and most conversational knowledge, like the Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam chapter, 9th chapter. But now he's saying this is even the highest knowledge of all. Because by knowing, you will attain liberation. So now we get back to the same point. Just by simple understanding of these three modes of material nature, one can make a huge spiritual advancement, because we know actually that we are not the handler, the doer. We are not the doer, because actually everything is being done by by the modes of material nature, like we say, prakriti kriyamanani. And Gunai karmani sarvataha ahankara vimudhatma kartaham iti manyati. Ahankara is just by the false ego we think I am doing this, but actually it's only the modes. And the soul is just like the picture, which is in the Bhagavad Gita, is just like a passenger. Okay, the pictures here are kind of difficult, so I'm not going to go there. The soul is just like kind of a passenger observing actually all this. Actually, the soul is kind of bewildered. It's completely confused. Oh my God, like what is happening here? It's just, the mind with the senses are just all around trying to enjoy, and the mind is kind of also bewildered, And the modes of material nature are just playing like a puppet master. What do you call him? A puppeteer. Yeah, like all the living entities are puppets being controlled by these three modes of material nature. And the whole material world is like a TV screen. Back to the TV screen story. So if any of you have some basic knowledge about TV screens, it's only three colors, right? And those three colors, red, blue, and green. All the colors we see, everything actually we see is a combination of those three colors. And in the same way, everything we perceive in this material world is actually a combination of these three colors, of these three modes of material nature. So we have actually everything we see, everything we hear, everything we smell, everything we eat is actually in these three modes of material nature. Like we know there are some foods that are in the mode of goodness, and some foods that are in the mood of passion, like chili, or some things that are in the mood of ignorance, like mushrooms, meat, and so on. And the same thing by hearing, like there is music in the mode of goodness, like classical music. There is music more in the mode of passion, like what we hear on the radio always, hip-hop and so on. And there's music in the mode of ignorance. Like what? Like death metal or, yeah. I used to listen to everything. all of them, except classical music. So yeah, and in the same way, the things we see, we can see a beautiful landscape, and that's already in goodness, and so on. You get the idea. So the mode of goodness is actually representing satisfaction. That's what we are striving for. Through the regulative principles, actually we are aiming to reach the mode of goodness. Because the mode of goodness means that you're satisfied. The mode of passion means that you're hankering. You always want something. You're always running after something and you don't get satisfied. I don't know if any of you, I have big experience of being so hungry that you just run to the prasad room, make a huge plate, and you eat so quickly that you don't feel satisfied. And then after 1 hour or something, you regret it because you realize you were just in the mode of passion. And interestingly speaking, our mind is actually in the mode of goodness. Believe it or not, the original state of the mind is in sattva gun, which is actually satisfied. The only problem is there is a degradation that is happening in our consciousness. So our consciousness is based on our state of mind, and it is actually being degraded from sattva gun to rajagun to tamagun. And the modern world, for those who don't have this discipline and routine, I'm not talking about spiritual practice yet, those who don't have this sattva gun of waking up early, cleanliness, tidiness, having a disciplined routine, having a healthy diet, they are actually stuck in the lower modes of material nature. So the living entity, due to becoming kind of familiar with the mode of goodness, because at some point for the mind it becomes boring. And here the degradation of consciousness happens, because originally we are in sattva gun, in the mood of goodness. And then we get kind of bored and we want something more action, more exciting, more enthusiastic. We tend to go to rajagun, things that are more rajasic, more fun, more passionate, more loud, faster, better. And after some time, the living entity becomes exhausted, becomes tired, because too much passion will actually needs to shut down, which is go to the mode of passion is actually being expressed by consuming a lot, eating a lot. So we go down to the mode of tamagun, so that we rest. So we take a short nap of 10 hours, and then you wake up, drink some, or take some coffee or whatever stimulants to go raise up again our consciousness to the rajagun, and then this vicious circle. So this is the modern society. If we see, like Montag bis Freitag, 40 hours a week, Monday to Friday, you just work like an ass, wake up early, take your breakfast on the way to work, take your lunch in, I don't know, while working or while walking, and then you run back home to do your duties, and then this routine keeps going until Friday. Friday comes and go for party, go to the clubs. What do they, what's the theme nowadays? It's drum and bass, right? It's just drum. So people go to party and just exploit their consciousness, just completely crazy. And then, weekend is finished. Monday comes, Monday morning, ta-ra-ra, and the cycle goes on again. Monday till Friday. Run in complete Rajagun, and then the weekend comes, sleep the whole weekend, just turn off your consciousness, drink, smoke, party, sleep as much as possible, and then the weekend finishes, and this goes on. So this is the cycle of Rajagun, Tamagun, and so on. Okay, this took a different direction that I wanted to. So we don't want to do so long the evening lectures because the morning is sattva time, but in the evening it tends to be, personally myself, I become more impatient and want to not to have a long sessions or a long lecture. So this is one last thing I want to share with you. I'm doing a course called Dasa Mula Shiksha. So Dasa means 10, and Mula Shiksha is like the principal, Dasa Mula Tattva or Dasa Mula Shiksha, the 10 principal truths, or the 10 basic principles, let's say, or truth. Tattva means truth. And maybe we can get back to the point at the beginning that actually we are not very much interested in this tattva and the knowledge about tattva, about the truth, how this whole creation took place, what are actually the different forms and avatars of Krishna, and only the philosophical, the practical details of the soul. And the other aspect is rasa, which is, rasa means, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur translated it as melo, or let's say it's a certain emotional reciprocation between the jiva and Bhagavan. So, I'm doing this course. Mataji, from where are you? Moldova, you said? Moldavia, okay. Maybe you know Bhaktivedanta Goswami? Okay, not yet. Maybe. Okay. So this course, this seminar is actually doing with Guru Maharaj, and it's like we had a certain course, and then we wanted to do the prerequisite course for the first initiation. To get first initiation, there is 1 year course, but for some reason, even before that course, we decided to do this course because it's even more important and more basic than what we are going to later. So the Dasamula Tattva is actually, there is by Jiva Goswami, it's a book actually, it's Dasamula Tattva by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and it's actually a summary about, he took the Shad Sandarbhas from Jiva Goswami. The Shad Sandarbhas is like the 6 Sandarbha. What does Sandarbha mean? Conclusions? No, Siddhanta is conclusions. So the whole teaching of the Vaishnava philosophy were put from the different acharyas were put in this Shat Sandarbhas, and then Bhaktivinoda Thakur even made it more simple into this Dasamula Tattva. And the reason for this, the reason for studying this Siddhanta, now we go back to the beginning, why actually do we need this Siddhanta? Siddhanta means the knowledge, the conclusion actually. Literally it means knowledge. And why do we need to have a firm understanding of the philosophy? Because the mind is distracted, okay? Like Radhanath Maharaj says, the problem is not today's world has not a problem of weapons of mass destructions, it's a weapon of mass distraction. Wow, sehr gut. Aber auf Englisch hört sich besser an. So in English it's nicer. So, so yeah, we are so easily distracted, you know, like especially when we want to chant or do some meditation, whatever your spiritual practice is, the mind is just thinking about something else. And this is like something in the yoga psychology that as a certain thought is just constantly coming on the surface. You know, like we want to concentrate on certain object, on Krishna, on the Maha Mantra, but then suddenly, within seconds or within minutes, there's a certain thought that is coming up on the mind. And why is it so difficult to concentrate actually on Krishna? Because first of all, we don't know who is Krishna. And because we are used to from one thought to the other, right? Like the phone, why is it so nice, the internet? Because it's just 1,000 ideas, 1,000 thoughts and topics being put into one page, and you can scroll through all of them. So due to this, you know, scattered mind, our mind is kind of scattered everywhere due to gadgets, due to the internet and the gadgets, and you know, the people nowadays, when they wake up, the first thing is they check their phone, WhatsApp or Messenger. So we need to apply our consciousness in studying this Siddhanta, this knowledge, because by studying this knowledge, actually we can fix our mind. So, and when we talk about this Siddhanta, like now I'm trying to do, using you as objects, holy Vaishnava objects to understand this topic, because actually this is the homework that we were given. You should share this, what you heard, with somebody, because listening and repetition are essential. So it is said, like when you hear, you get 25% of the knowledge. When you talk about it, 20. When you think about it, 25. When you ask questions, 25%, and then when you talk about it, you get the last 25%. So just heard this once from actually scientific sources, not from our books, let's say. So by hearing and repeating this, actually we are strengthening the mind, and we are technically purifying our hearts, because while this being done, we fix our mind, so dhruva, and by attaching ourselves to Krishna, then it becomes easier to meditate on one object. And just to conclude the whole lecture, so we just talked about, we try to conclude the 13th chapter, what is Prakriti, what is Purusha, and so on. And we try to give an introduction about the three gunas, the 14th chapter. And I was trying to say, why is it actually important to study not only the soul and God, but to study also the energy of God. Because ultimately there are two extremes. You either want to concentrate or worship God and his energies doesn't matter, or the other extreme is the energy is more important than God, or there is no God. Actually, it's all just energy, right? We are all familiar with this philosophy. Another example, like in India, for example, there are also many gods. Some people think there are many gods, and that's why some people may tend to refuse the idea that there is only one supreme, one Bhagavan. There is just, we worship everybody, Durga, Ganesh, whatever, just in case. And this is another extreme, that they focus on the energy but not the energetic, not understanding that the energy is not different actually from the energetic, who is God, who is Krishna, and who is also absolute. And absolute means that his name, his forms, his pastimes, his energy is not different from him. So when we only try to understand Krishna without trying to comprehend or conceive his energy, we see actually the situation of many fanatics, of many religious people, and almost of the whole world, that yes, I believe in God, me and God, we are good, we have our own thing going on, I worship Him, but the energy of God is just illusion, they think. It does not exist, it's not real, so I give myself a reason to exploit it. So that's actually the extreme or the end if we just try to understand Krishna without trying to understand his energies, which are not different from him, that we are already in this state of mind actually of exploitation, exploiting the material energy for our own enjoyment. So we need to make sure that to understand tattva and to understand tattva. It's not an English word, it's tattva means truth, and to understand also the rasa. And the Srimad Bhagavatam is actually the book talking about both, culminating in the 10th canto, which is talking about the ultimate rasa, the loving reciprocations between Krishna and his devotees. And the first cantos, of course, are talking about this rasa. And also and at the same time talking about tattva, about the creation. So, sorry if I bore you with that topic. Maybe there are some questions or comments. Okay. Dean, can I ask you something? Can you please say the translation of Jaya Radha Madhava, which you just told me before we came to the lecture? Ins Mikrofon, bitte.
Krishna is the lover of Radha. He displays many amorous pastimes in the groves of Vrindavan. He's the lover of the cowherd maidens of Raja, the holder of the great hill named Govardhan, the beloved son of Mother Yashoda, the delighter of the inhabitants of Raja, and he wanders in the forests along the banks of the river Yamuna.
Thank you. Jaya Radha Madhava song. This is one of the most important bhajans which Srila Prabhupada introduced to sing before the lectures. And it is often stories mentioned how Srila Prabhupada used to have his emotions, his ecstatic emotions actually being visible for his disciples, for the others, while singing this song, because he could not control himself. And this is actually the highest form of meditation, when concentrating on one object, and this object of meditation is actually Krishna and his pastimes. So that's why we have this knowledge, we have the verses, we have shlokas. These shlokas, and of course the songs, the Acharya songs, the Vaishnava songs, when are being sung or chanted, like Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, we're actually meditating on the meaning of each word. And by this meditation on these shlokas, on these words, we actually are accessing, right? Accessing, to access. We access actually this spiritual realm, actually the meaning of these words, and so that we can remember Krishna and never forget him. Thank you. Wish you a nice evening in Shri Dham Simhachalam. Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Vancha Kalpatarubhascha, Kripa Sindhu.